presidential affairs. Also in the room we have key players from the ministries, departments and agencies, and all these have an impact on what trade between Uganda and many other countries is all about.
So let me start by thanking you for making time on a Thursday morning when you are returning from your recess. And this, I am hoping, is the first activity for the day, right? So thank you for considering this question of trade and exports as your first point of contact as you come back to work. So my name is Ruabuogo. We know each other. A number of you, we've met, worked together. But I feel guilty because I've been asking for some regular interaction, especially of Committee on Trade, on Agriculture, on Foreign Affairs, because when we got to do this work, we never set out to be diplomats. We never set out to be civil servants. We purely come from the private sector, and we had some stone in our shoes that kept hurting us, and thought we need to really surface these issues and deal with them as a country, but not just as private sector or as public sector, but at a point of intersection, because we deal with one face called Uganda. But for us to do these things without interaction with members of parliament, I want to apologize, and I hope that this begins the journey, that we can set a schedule in the year for us to share these things with you. Why are we here? Maybe let me start with a purpose. So when a company sells or when a country exports, that's the oxygen of the economy. The rest is carbon dioxide, is consumption. If a business is not selling, it has no right to hire, it cannot pay taxes, it cannot innovate, that business will die. So take that as a country. If a country is selling less than what it consumes, that country cannot compete in the region or on the global scale. Now, that country will rely on debt to grow, but we know that debt that is not attached to some sort of growth trajectory is debt that will hold you down. That country will have companies that will consume inputs from the works of other people, but it will not create its own inputs. Inputs here, I mean, if I have to create a syringe just for an injection, and I have to import it in full as a finished product, and I can't use my raw material to produce that syringe, as long as the cost of inputs going up, keeps going up, either I will have inflation, print money, and cause inflation, or I'll have to sell something to counter the price of increase of raw materials that make a syringe. I'm just using a syringe as an example, but I could go for all the everyday consumer goods we use. And so therefore, some of us have been deeply concerned that when we wake up in the morning, we're not thinking about what did the country sell yesterday before it thinks of consuming, before it thinks of adding another layer of administration or whatever it is. And so I was in 2020, from June 2020 to around October, me I'm speaking now personal experience, we lost 60% of our customers, and we kept staff. We didn't want to send away our staff. And so we had to borrow to keep staff, to borrow, to pay taxes. And I took 4 months out of the country. I spent it in the neighborhood. I would walk 28 kilometers every day. We were making a road somewhere. Very good to see government institutions in the room. So I spent those 4 months trying to make sure that my own business survives. And when I was there, I kept following the statistics of our country. And so I keep telling this story, and I hope it really makes the basic sense. I asked that we count the number of pubs, drinking places in the country as at 18th of March 2020. And I got a figure of 85,000 drinking places across the country. So a pub is where you have 3 people. There's one in the counter who gives you the drink. There's one who serves you. And there is someone at the door in case you want to go without paying. They will arrest you or do something. So 3 people. So I want you to multiply. You know, we closed bars. So drinking was invited back home. So all those people went away. And so 3 people times 85,000 pubs across the country. How many are those? Somewhere around 170 to 200,000 people, either out of work or have had to go and decide some other thing to do, or perhaps if they can't find something to do, become criminals. Now, think of dependence on those people. So because a child is at home waiting for bread and milk. So think of schools, 260,000 teachers out of school. I would meet some of them when the skies opened up. You meet them in Abu Dhabi, you meet them as teachers, as security guards. So when we did the count without wasting your time, we found we had lost 450,000 jobs in a span of 12 to 18 months. And so I thought that crises are good turning points. Because a crisis is an inflection point. I said, aha, even something bad should happen so that our eyes can open and think about how to create jobs, how to really, really sustain SMEs. And so we began opening up, and we didn't pick those lessons. And we began to do things as usual. So I said we must make 4 interventions. And if you could put them up, but I can speak through them quickly so we don't have time. I said if we make these 4 interventions, perhaps we can restore growth, we can save the companies that are collapsing. I want you to know that a collapsing company in Uganda has no place to go. There's no hospital for treating a company that is losing staff, that is unable to pay taxes. The only route they do is go to Minister for Finance, or maybe start with your MP. Your MP goes to Finance. Finance writes to the President writes to Gobi. Gobi says we don't have the budget, and then it's cyclical. Eventually they can say sometimes go to UDB, but UDBs will take you about 9 months to secure anything. The lowest interest rate is 12%. Business people who are here know what I'm talking about. So there is no hospital to treat a sick company. So I said, let's take 4 interventions. And this is why I started with apologizing, because I should have had time initially earlier to share this with you. The first intervention is, he said, we must stop blind trade. We must go to markets with intention. Markets are not, so when we say everything but arms, what does that mean? When we say AGOA, what does that mean? When we say, whatever we say, when we say we produce 5 million tons of maize, that does not get us into the market. Markets, you do intentional research. You get the tastes and preferences of what people consume. You appoint trade representatives. You set up a trade hub. You carry samples of your goods. You ensure that people are passing by. You maintain presence so that people know this country is here. It's not potential. A man or woman must say, I'm mature now. I'm on the market. I have something to sell. So in this room, you will see our trade representative in Chicago, and he will tell you the work he's been doing. Why do we start with the market? Because the market is an incentivizer of everything. If you really understand the market, you'll understand what you're producing. So when we spend some time, I'm rushing very quickly, on the market, we found out that it's not enough to do research. It's not enough to have a trade rep. It's not enough to be present and communicate on that market, because the market demands standards that you must comply with. What are standards? Every day, Europe, the Western world, increases their standards in order to protect their farmers. 2 years ago, they gave EU alone 300 billion euros to European companies to ensure that they are able to compete against Chinese companies to sell in developing countries. 150 billion euros is meant for Africa. Why? Because they want to make it cheaper for their companies to keep your productive capabilities down so that they can keep their market. Now, so the standard is your laws, rules, regulations on food safety, on animal health, on plant health. So when you wake up in the morning, you don't see in the front page of New Vision something that says 12 containers were intercepted in Brussels, Uganda and Chile. Uganda lost $1 million. But the front page will say a story about politics and something else. But the real purpose for having leadership and having a country and having institutions is that you build the incomes of people by being on the market. If nobody is talking about the market and the struggles you have there, trouble. It doesn't matter how many of us are leading if we are not generating enough income for people to grow and change our social classes and become a better society. So this led us into things I didn't know, that some of our laws and regulations were last amended 1964. So I said, we have had the Minister for Agriculture since 1962. How come we don't have a food safety law? Why is it we sell meat by the roadside and nobody asks? How can we say we have good beef, but our tourists are snapping up pictures of how we carry animals? And you can't sell beef. Boris Johnson told President Museveni, I am giving you 180,000 metric tons annually for the British market. I don't know who is the current Prime Minister now of Britain. So many PMs have passed. We haven't sold a kilo because we haven't worked on conformity standards for our country. When you have the market and you have the standard, it's not enough. You need to have infrastructure that supports exports. You must have labs that function. You must, so in Uganda, when we break one vial of some chemical to test a product, we must use it for 1 or 2 companies or 1 or 2 products. In Kenya, when they do the same, they make 100 tests. So they have scale, their cost goes down. For us, we keep reagents expensive because few companies are testing here. So we ship our samples to Kenya and bring them back. So I said, why don't we have labs? How come we've taken loans for such a long time as a country, but our labs don't give us competitive capability like the labs in the neighborhood? How about our aerodromes? Why should we land in Entebbe and fly and drive 10 hours to get to Kotido or to Kisoro? Why can't we expand those aerodromes and make them international and give them codes? Why don't we support Uganda Airlines, Uganda Air Cargo as one tool to land in places where we can take our products? So all this infrastructure. So sometimes I tell my people that I'm becoming inefficient. I can't just run all over the place and fix things which are really structural if I can't fix the cultural thinking of our people to know that this is not about Ruawogo, it's not about you, it's about the future of our country. Those of you who come from, is anyone from Hoima here? Bunyoro? Kalindo no Gimangiri? There is a ship, thank you. Thank you, my sister. There was a ship built in 1929 by the British. Its name is Corindon. The Banyoro call it Kalindoni. It crashed in 1962. It used to carry 1,000 tons of timber. It is the reason Masindi Hotel was built. They wanted to connect Lake Albert with Kyoga and Masindi in order that they can put cargo on the rail and go to Mombasa and bring cooking oil and bring cement and sell to Eastern Congo. So if you go to any of the landing sites around Lake Albert, you'll find 15 horsepower engine boats or canoes transporting cooking oil, cement, and a few of our products to Eastern Congo. So I asked, how can the British make Kalindoni and we don't have a cargo ship on that lake to give us capacity to push beyond $600 million worth of sales in Eastern Congo and make it $1 billion? So we don't have money. We have to borrow. We have to get loans. If you don't have infrastructure that supports export, your logistic charge will remain high. You will not compete with anyone in the region. It doesn't matter how much of the market is open. So market, standards, infrastructure, but let's assume you have those three. You are not anywhere near success unless you can find export funding for your companies. We have companies of young people that are very creative, extremely creative. But if they have a product called, let's say, vanilla, and they've turned out oil from that vanilla, they branded it very well, they want to sell it to the US, they have to go to a commercial bank, they must borrow at 19%, while the Chinese will bring here their plastics at 1%. How can you compete? So we went through a survey of all the banks and I just got a headache. I said, we must start something else and find a way to raise money, to give it to companies. And you know, this is very interesting. As soon as people see money, they think that's all. They've solved everything. They can give you $1 million. I've seen companies so weak. You give them $1 million, they will go and buy a car and build a house and don't fulfill the real intention of the order they got. So problems are not on the public sector only. Problems are in private sector. I'm taking a lot of time, but I just want to tell you, we all fish from the same lake. We are never going to be Norwegians. We are Ugandans unless we change the way we see how we want to grow the country. So we said, can we not get some money? A company gets an order. We underwrite that order. So the order is $100,000. We give you half that money. We keep it with you for 3 years. We give it to you at less than 5%. You start paying after 180 days. We look at these invoices being underwritten. We scale the business so that that sector now forms consortiums that can supply it. Say, whoever does that, who are you to talk about banking? So you can imagine where I started from. Are you in the market? Are you Minister of Trade? Are you Minister of Finance? Are you Minister of Infrastructure? You are all over the place, but you're looking for a coalescence of thought to ensure that you can fix structural problems of our economy to give it more oxygen and stop carbon dioxide, which is consuming every day. So, you know, I can go on and on. Are we together? Do you understand this burden I'm sharing with you? Because you as members of parliament, you have a fantastic voice in your constituencies, because that's where we'll have to get products that need to be processed, that need to be shipped. You have a voice in the House to decide what is a priority in terms of the young people of our country who are creating companies and they die every day because they don't have support, they don't have standards. You have a voice on the management of our public institutions, Uganda Railways, Uganda Airlines. They must compete with Cathay Pacific, with Singapore Airlines. They must compete with South African Airways. If they can't, they are not Uganda Airlines. They are our tool to get into the market. They are not a plane to take us. They are a plane to bring tourists to fill our hotels and buy our food and ensure that they leave some money in the country. The thinking has to change, but thinking takes time. change is hard. Change requires champions. Change means that you disrupt your usual day and say, what if I did it differently? What if I approach these matters completely different from how they've been approached for the last 30 years? That's the thing I want you to live with. So don't see me as Ruabogo pleading for anything. We are looking for $6 billion in the next 5 years. But I want us to export double our current GDP by 2062. What will happen in 2062? Who knows what will happen? You will make a century as a country. You'll be 100 years. 100 years, we should be exporting double our current GDP. So when I say that, they say, who will be there? That's 37 years. I won't be a member of parliament. I won't be a minister. So I say, it's okay to die, but the country will be there. And we must make these decisions really in the bigger interest of our country. Brenda, I can go on and on. Shall I invite our trade representative? Okay, so those are the targets. I wasn't even looking at this, I was just speaking off my head. These are the targets. We arrived at these targets in a very methodical way. We took each sector. So if you take sugar, these are the troubles we have. I'm picking the worst case scenario. When we began the journey, we were told 200,000 metric tons of sugar that we can't sell. So we went all over the world, we got sugar off-takers. And they agreed to buy 30,000 metric tons per year and cream off completely our excess. Soon as we started, the sugar companies don't agree with the sugar farmers don't agree with the Minister of Trade. And then we had these Irish buyers for 2 months in Kampala until they left. And now we said, let's form a sugar council that brings all these people together so we can have one story of what we produce. That's where we are. Honorable Hati has been pursuing that sugar council. I hope we can get somewhere. If you take tourism, we're just looking for 324,000 leisure tourists, each spending a minimum of $3,000 when they're in Uganda, right? But I can't get those by simply waiting for Uganda Airlines and Kenya Airways and KLM, which comes. There's no European airline that lands here directly. They either drop people in Kenya and they go into the safari parks, or drop them in Rwanda, because we haven't been very strategic what we want to do. And it makes me sad and very angry. So I have now asked, can't we do charters? Why is Kenya receiving 2,000 people in Mombasa every week, chartering planes and giving their tour operators and their hoteliers incentives to make sure that they can sell more room space at a cheaper price? Is that rocket science? Can't we do it? I said, can't we develop content in the markets where we are opening trade hubs? That's the only way you can raise that new $1 billion amount in the economy. Let's go. We're taking a lot of time. Go. I won't talk about others. So these are farms and brands. We're not recreating things. If there's a company that can sell, let me say, fruits and vegetables. I see Hoti Fresh in the room. That company, we want to aggregate them and ensure that they can take a single order in Southeastern Europe and have a place at Entebbe where the fruits and vegetables are checked to a standard. The president has been very helpful. He's asked UFSA to create one central place where we can put Fred, when you have time, I don't want to delay people, you'll mention what you're doing for the horticulture sector. But that horticulture sector, I want that for tea. Tea, I'm sure you know, we are going through a mega crisis, but Ghana is $500 million worth of tea consumption. Egypt, if we go indirectly, $300 million worth of tea. I have put the Egyptian ambassador with the Tea Association, but issues of quality, issues of regulation, issues of organization. These problems are really cultural, I can tell you. To fail to compete is not lack of money or resources, it's here. It's the way we've decided to run our institutions. And so I spoke about these, it's all right. So let me invite Dr. Kamanzi. Dr. Kamanzi, please come. Dr. Kamanzi, I met him through a dear friend. I was looking for which African can help me in Chicago, in America, to find me two things: off-take of vanilla, of coffee, not green coffee, roasted coffee, of leather bags, and many of the products you saw. And then I asked our institutions, I asked our diaspora, and everything landed on Dr. Olivier Kamanzi. He will tell you his story. He's from Rwanda, but has lived in Switzerland, worked with Citibank, has his own chamber of commerce in Chicago that helps how many African countries?
47.
47 African countries. I'm not paying him. When I said I want to appoint him a trade representative, some of our institutions said, who's that? What position is that? Where is the budget? Whose mandate? I said, why don't you start with the task instead of mandate and budget? And so he accepted to do the role. He has been so kind. He's now helping me to raise export funding outside by floating instruments outside. They know how to raise money. And I'm asking government to partner with him to see if we can raise money for exporters. Dr. Matanda is really almost like my son because he worked in our company. He phoned me with young people in 2003. I had started our own business in 1998, a small company. I went to school outside thinking I'm a big man from Makerere, and the lecturer had a diploma, teaching a master's class, and she had a diploma, and I just rebelled. I was young. I said, you can't teach me. I'm from the great Makerere University. And the lady laughed at me, said, you have a chip on your shoulder. It's not your books. It's your heart. It's your calling. Yeah? So I had started a company, and I had employed 10 people, and he came and sacked all of them. And led the company, and then left me in 2005. Went to the US, went and became a professor at the university, has his family. He's really, really been helpful, him and Dr. Kamanzi, trying to unravel the issue of AGOA to find a solution in DC. You must have seen me in Washington in December. They are the ones who arranged the Republican Institute, the House of Congress, these two. They have done fantastic work for our country quietly. Nobody pays them. But some people fight them because you are entering my area now. You are entering my... So, but your area is not done. Someone has to fix this. So I just invited them because they have a big event they are doing in Kampala in May or June. They want to bring us off-takers, African Americans, who will off-take our products. They are talking to Boeing, to Coca-Cola to find sponsorship for this event. So I wanted them to speak to you so you can see what we're trying to raise awareness and presence on the market of America. If I speak on the market of EU, it's the same story. The market of Serbia, same story. The market of South Africa, where we have a trade rep and not functioning, same story. So I want your help. PACEID is just not... it's not like a power center. It's a service center to be able to get our institutions to work, to compete, and bring change and oxygen in that area that matters. Thank you very much. So I want to hand over to them.